Welcome back to the OMB Law Board. I'm Simon Bennett. Today, I'm so excited. I've got a friend and a Gold Coast identity. She's the number one radio host on breakfast radio on the Gold Coast, media personality, social media, mother, done everything. Emily Jade, welcome to the OMB Law Board.
Thank you. I need you to write my bio.
Well, I think that, sometimes it's harder to see what you've achieved from your own perspective and then other people can see it. But from our point of view, we see all of those things and much, much more. And today we're going to dive into a bit of that. But let me start with this before we get into it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you an early morning person or are you just a really good actor on radio?
I'm a really good actor. I have hated waking up every day for 30 years. Waking up early. I like waking up, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Any day you wake up is a great day.
Good day.
But I actually had a girls' weekend last weekend and we were talking about, we're going to get to sleep in. We're not waking up with the kids. And then I woke up early and I was like, girls, what is wrong? Usually when I have to wake up every morning, I wake up thinking, oh, here we go. And you just put your feet on the floor and get going. But it has been a struggle realistically for 30 years.
Well, as listeners, avid listeners, we would never know.
Oh, thank you. It's because I love my job. If I didn't love it, I would have ended it years and years ago. And many do. Many can't handle that early morning alarm over and over and over again. Yeah.
Okay. So look, thanks for joining us today. I want to get into where it all began, how you started on this journey, your development of your brand, and maybe as that rolls into a touch of legal, brand protection, etc., and then your current status, as to where you are with the podcast with your daughter Millie. So why don't we dive into that and see where the journey takes us?
Well, I can say I've needed legal advice often in this career.
All right, we'll get into that as we go. So as a young girl, I think you were born in Gatton and you moved to Tasmania at an early age, and maybe is that where the journey started?
Well, actually not really. See, my family is a performing family and that's essentially what radio is. It's performing every single morning. My father was an amateur actor. My grandfather was an amateur actor. I grew up, in musicals and things like that. We moved actually quite a lot. I moved from Gatton when I was 2 and every time we moved town, my dad would join the Theatre and Dramatic Society as a way to make friends. And so I grew up with my mum playing the piano and making costumes and my dad being the lead in most musicals. And then I was like the Munchkins in The Wizard of Oz and the orphans in Oliver and Annie and things like that. So that was our family history, was always performing. So when we moved to Tassie, the high school that I went to had a school radio station. And so it was just another extension of performing for me.
Yep.
And so I joined that school radio station. The school's called Don College. And in Tassie, they do school differently. You go to year 10 in the public school and then you go to college for year 11 and 12. It's a little bit like the American system.
Okay.
So this was in year 11. And it used to be this radio station was so funny. It was built by the local radio station, 7AD. And it was literally just a desk with a couple of CD players. They supplied CDs. And then we would have to roll this desk out of a cupboard at lunchtime, switch it all on. We'd play music for the common room and for the play areas. And then we'd have to pack it all up and push it back in. And so that's kind of how it started.
So you've been in radio since year 11?
Since I was 16, yeah.
Fantastic.
So then when I went to university in Launceston, I studied performing arts because at the time I did want to be an actress. But there was a local community radio station, a Christian community radio station. Christianity is really big in Tassie.
Yep.
And so I schlepped up to the radio station and said, can I do anything? And they gave me a Sunday shift and then a Saturday shift and then lots of other shifts. And then when my university degree finished, I walked into the commercial radio station, 7LA, and said, here's my body of work. Have you got anything for me? They actually said no. And so then I went back and I pitched a whole show idea. A nighttime show. I knew that they had a syndicated night show and I was like, how is that in touch with the community? So I pitched a show, I pitched sponsors and I pretty much created the show and they said yes and took it.
Isn't that a wonderful lesson to young people today, and not just young people actually, but the way that you worked your way into the industry that you knew you wanted to do? I mean, pitching yourself for a show.
Well, the first thing was all the free work.
And then doing all the just walking in and saying, hey, I'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah, 3 years of community radio gave me the foundation to know what radio stations were looking for. And so that's why I was able to pitch something. I knew that they needed somehow to pay me.
Yep.
I knew it had to be a pay that was on par to what they paid the syndicated show. And then I also pitched the community element. You'll have somebody on the ground, and that's what I believe radio is. I actually don't love this whole syndication thing that radio is doing, because I believe it's the last remaining media that is truly in communities and servicing the community.
And we'll get to that with your gig at Hot Tomato, a local Gold Coast station with local Gold Coast content shortly. But I can't let you get out of Tasmania without telling us about winning Miss Launceston.
You know what? I think that helped me get my job too.
It did?
So when I was at university, one of my best friends was a beauty queen. She was Miss Indy, all that kind of stuff. And I was a really awkward teen. I had braces, freckles. I was a little bit chubby. I had poor skin. And then I got to university and she was like, come and enter some of these beauty contests with me. And she totally renovated me, like did my hair, makeup, everything. I did like a deportment and grooming and a modeling course. And I actually went in a few little beauty pageants and I failed miserably. But Miss Launceston Cup was not just beauty. It was your personality. And you had to be a good public speaker because they needed you to host rooms. You had to represent Launceston at the Melbourne Cup. And it was also about, your outfit and your costume essentially. And my mum was a beautiful seamstress. So she and I made this beautiful costume and then I had to, speak and do public speaking.
So the show person came out.
It suited me, yeah. So it wasn't just on beauty. But I tell you what, I'm so proud of that sash. And I still talk about it all these years
Good on you.
later.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And then one of the things I think about, Emily, Jade, when you went first into my orbit was when you were launching Hot Tomato.
Yeah.
And in fact, you've been the lead on a launch of a number of stations over your career.
Yeah, I think this is true, but I'm the only female in Australia that's launched 4 radio stations from scratch.
Incredible.
Yeah, so when I was in Lonnie, I was doing, like I said, the nighttime show for it was a couple of stations. It ended up syndicating to 4 other Tasmanian stations. But we got bought by RG Capital, Reg Grundy.
Yeah.
And he wanted to launch CFM into the market. So I was on an AM brand. So then he launched CFM and swapped me from the nighttime show to launching that, doing breakfast. And then when I was working there, they did a big push. Reg bought a whole lot of licenses and he did a big push throughout Australia launching that CFM brand, which was only on the Gold Coast first. And then he started to launch it everywhere. And he wanted to launch in Toowoomba and they called it CFM but with a C. And my grandparents were in Toowoomba and they were aging, born in Gatton, going back to that Gatton thing.
Yep.
And I wanted to be near them.
Yeah.
So I applied for that and they gave me that. Then I was working there and I moved a little bit around with RG Capital, did some work in Toowoomba, and then Hot Tomato was launching. So I applied for it because I really wanted to work on the Gold Coast. And luckily I got that. But then when I was working here on the Gold Coast, Nova brand started to launch. And there was a bit of synergy between Hot Tomato because it was owned by Anna Murdoch-Mann and Hans Torv. And then the Nova brand was heavily influenced with the Murdochs. So I then went and launched Brisbane Nova. And so it was like 4 stations in 7 years that I launched from scratch. Yeah, you need a certain energy to launch a brand.
Yeah.
And I think that the station owners started to see and know that it's a special brand of energy because you're nothing. You're starting from nothing. So you need someone willing to go to everything, network their guts out, but also create a great product.
Yeah. And obviously, you did such a fantastic job with that, but we're so glad that you came back home and back at Hot Tomato.
Yeah, I had a baby and my husband's family is all here and I needed support. So we came home.
Okay. So is there a point in that development story where you started to realise that this entertainment thing that you loved so much and your family did was more than a gig? It was going to be a career for you. When was that moment, do you think?
Look, that's a really hard one because I think there's lots of little moments, to be honest. But if I was to go right back, it's actually my first day at university and it was a performing arts degree. So you have to audition to get into it. And then it's a small cohort. So there was like 25 in our class. And one of the lecturers in our very first class said, of all of you, probably only 15 are going to graduate because this is a grueling course.
Yep.
And then he said, and then out of the 15, maybe 2 of you will actually work in the industry because we all know that acting is a tough gig. And my degree was really good because, and I highly recommend it, it still exists, and it's the University of Tasmania. it is a holistic look at the arts. So it's not just acting. We had to learn how to stage manage, how to work in production, costume design, everything. You did a little bit of everything, script writing, publicity. You learn a bit of everything. And so in that, I thought to myself, I want to have work in this business. So what am I going to do? And so that's why I walked into the radio station and started offering my work there. I walked into the television stations. I became the weather girl in Tassie. Like, I was busy. I don't know when I slept, to be honest, because I was doing degrees, doing radio, doing weather.
Well, I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
When we look at your career, it's far more than radio. You've done TV, you've done live performance.
Yes.
Well, tell us about some of the other things that some of our listeners and viewers may not know about you. That, you've been in stage performances.
Yeah, well, I'm a theatre performer. I haven't done much acting on television. I did do a little bit on a little tiny TV show that didn't do well, but my success on stage has been in musicals, big stage musicals. And plays. Plays is where it was at for me. I'm not actually the best singer. I kind of, bluff my way through the singing part. I can hold a tune, but I'm not outstanding. But in an ensemble, that's okay.
Yep.
So I've done that. But then television, a lot of television. Carrie Ann show. I had a kids show called Download. I've done the footy show, and then lots of commentating and things like that. So
it's a broad base, isn't it?
You have to, though, because you just never know when the jobs are going to come and go. So some days I could be working on 3 different things, television, radio, and theatre, and I'm thinking, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. But you push yourself through because the theatre show then ends, and then you never know when TV is going to end. And I have lost my job in radio before.
I'm glad you raised this because it's something that I've seen. I just wonder how you deal with it. My wife had been in sales in radio, as you know, and I've seen a lot of radio people, and it's quite brutal.
It's
because
very brutal.
when it's done, there's no notice and you're just gone.
It's happened to me twice.
How do you deal with that?
Not well. So the first time that I was released from my work was actually Nova, and I'd launched that and I did 4 great years. I was absolutely number 1. And look, it came down to budget, I believe, in the end, and they just didn't re-sign me. And I was heartbroken. I bled Nova, if you know what I mean. I loved that station. I couldn't believe it. And I was devastated. But you know what I did? And I just don't know if it's me or if it's other people. I walked out of that building that day and I just rang the other radio station. I knew I was number 1.
Yep.
I knew that I was employable. I rang Triple M straight away and I said, I've just been released. I need work. And I said, I'll do anything. I'll do anything. I'll do weekend shifts. I'll do street team. I'll do whatever. And the guy that I rang actually said, you have rung at the best time. Our breakfast girls just resigned and we need someone. I went to a better shift.
I love the attitude right from your start. And in the law, in OMB, when I'm looking at hires for particularly lawyers, I love people who come in here with the attitude, whatever it takes.
Yes.
What do you need me to do? I'll do it.
I'll always start from the bottom. I'll offer the bottom first, and then I end up getting the top. So that was really lucky. That was attitude, yeah. And that was lucky. The second time I lost my job was a bit different. I was a bit more vulnerable because I was heavily pregnant, and it was a month before I was having my baby. So I walked out of that, and I just didn't think I'd be employable, to be honest. I was like, I can't ring anyone. I'm about to have a baby. And what happened then, I'll get emotional even talking about it, the ABC rang me. So I walked out thinking, I'm probably this is it. No one's going to employ me because I'll need time off to have my baby and then they'll forget about me.
I'll lose relevance, yeah.
Yeah, and instead, luckily, the program director from the ABC rang almost immediately and said, we'll have your baby, enjoy your time, and when you're ready, we've got something for you.
Fantastic.
So that was really lucky. And perhaps I deserved it because I have worked so hard, but I certainly didn't ring anyone. And then when I came to Hot Tomato, I'd been doing the national program for the ABC or statewide program. And then the owners of Hot Tomato rang and said, oh, you're back on air.
Exactly.
Will you come and work? And
thankfully you did. You're back on the Gold Coast. So what about this point? I mean, we've got this amazing career, but when did you understand, or when did you realise that your career was actually your brand and that you were your brand?
Well, kind of early on, because when I got into the commercial radio, my program director at the time, when I'd pitched the show, He said, Emily's not really a cool name. We need to think of something a bit cooler for you. And I think it was there that I was like, okay, I've got to come up with something.
EJ.
And it was Emily Jade. So my name is Emily Jade. And he actually wanted to like completely rename me. He was like trying to think of something else. And then I said, oh, my full name's Emily Jade O'Keeffe. And he went, oh, Emily Jade, yeah, that's got a better ring to it. So he called me, the show was The Night Mix with Emily Jade. So I knew then that, at 21, I knew that my name meant something. When I then moved to breakfast, at the time, a different program director was like, Emily Jade's too long a name for the co-host that I was going to go with.
Yep.
So they changed it to Ems. I don't know. And I was that for a little while. And then it was when I came back to the Gold Coast that they said, no, this Emily Jade name is good. It stands out. So your answer is really early on. Early on, I knew that the brand mattered.
That's something that some people may not realise, entertainers or sports people, et cetera, that brand is just so valuable and so important.
It is. And, when I got married, my husband and I still fight over it because I changed my last name for passports and banking, but I'm still Emily Jade O'Keeffe. I'm not my married name. I think sometimes he wishes I had done that, but
that's your brand.
By the time I married him, I had been in the market for 15 years. Everybody knew that name and I wasn't going to let it go.
Yeah. And I guess that flows a little bit across to the legal stuff is, protection of your brand.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important.
Yes.
And when you're signing deals,
mm-hmm.
you've got to look at the detail about protecting your brand,
yes.
what they're going to require you to do, what your obligations under a contract are, what restrictions they're going to place on you, and who owns the brand.
Absolutely. It's pretty much in every contract because they will try to own you
mm-hmm.
and own your IP and own everything. And so in every contract negotiation, I've had to say, my name's my name and
yep.
you can have it on lend for this,
yep.
but when I leave, you're not claiming it.
Yeah. You can use my brand whilst I'm
mm-hmm.
employed or engaged by you, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And I must say a few have tried. They're just, they want it all. And I luckily have had some good lawyers that say, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah. And the importance, I think, for some other young performers or artists or sports people who haven't realised the importance of their brand early enough
mm-hmm.
may get caught on that.
Absolutely. And I'm sure they do and they have. So I was lucky that early on I knew that.
The value of your brand.
Yeah. And I'm lucky that it is my actual name. It wasn't a created name. There's a lot of radio announcers will have, funny little created names.
Yep.
Mine was my actual name. So I kind of get to keep it.
And then have you had any instances where, the other big thing in mainstream media and social media, which we'll get to shortly,
mm-hmm.
is the defamation or the commentary that's caused people to think that they've got some sort of action against you?
Yeah, I've never had anything like that, but I'm a pretty tame announcer when it comes to things. I don't cause a lot of waves. And I've never been in a brand to do that.
Yep.
All the shows I've ever been in have been family friendly. So, you don't cause a lot of waves. The only issues I've had that I've needed lawyers for was every time I've left a job, even though they released me, they want you to have like that 3-month gardening leave.
Restraint period.
Restraint of trade. And each time I've actually been able to fight that.
Well, you've been walking in somewhere else.
I need the work, yeah. So when I left Nova to go to Triple M,
yep.
there were legal letters flying everywhere. So first of all, I got the letter saying I wasn't allowed to go to Triple M,
yep.
that I had to do this certain amount of time. And I then had to go back saying I need to work. And then luckily I included Triple M on all of that. And then they had another announcer that Nova wanted or whatever, and they did like a deal to release us both so that we could both start working.
Again, that's a great, a warning for, people is to read those contracts about what are my restraints going to be? What is
mm-hmm.
the expectation when I leave? Either I leave or they make me leave.
Yes.
Negotiate that up front so that,
absolutely.
If it's your income and you need to live, then you can't be prevented from working.
Yeah, without saying too much, I don't have that clause anymore.
Well, that's experience there.
Yeah.
The other thing I've noticed about you, and you're substantially different to me in this regard, you're a massive oversharer of personal information.
I know.
Is anything off limits?
Yes, some things are off limits.
Okay.
And what is off limits is the other people's lives. So how can I explain that? there's a bit of a code with my friends and family. So when we're having conversations, they will literally start with, this is not for radio.
Okay.
And so that's off limit.
Off the record.
Yeah. And if I have something that I do want to talk about, I will ask for permission. Can I talk about it? Have I done it all the time? No. I've once talked about something on air about if something happened with a friend, and I regret that now. But we were still friends because she was like, okay, let's start this is not for radio. And we joke about it now. Friends and family will laugh and go.
I think it's a wonderful quality, and I think it's why people have been attracted to you and your product, because it hasn't always been comfortable, the things you've shared.
Yes.
And everyone's journey is bumpy, and yours has been bumpy.
Very bumpy.
You know, you've shared some amazingly emotional, private relationships, children's stories that other people have just been attracted to.
Yeah, and the way that I describe that is, because I get asked this a lot, it's not for everyone, but this is what I was made for. So I believe that my purpose on earth is to be the voice for people who don't have a voice. So I've got the confidence. I'm a storyteller. I was a born storyteller. I was born into a family of storytellers, if we go all the way back. And it's my purpose. And if you believe in that, if you believe in finding your purpose, then you'll be comfortable in that. And so I'm more than happy to share, if I've been given permission, the personal journeys in my life. And sometimes people don't know that. So, for example, you know, when I shared some difficult things with my IVF and my fertility, people wrote and said, you shouldn't be sharing this. And, you know, because it's a story for both you and your husband. You know, there was lots of really deep things we were sharing. And I was like, I've got his permission. And that's why I need people to understand. I never share without permission.
Yeah.
So even when my husband and I separated, and I shared some of that, and we got back together again.
Yep.
And we shared that.
Yes.
And then anything to do with like my daughter, she's been diagnosed with ADHD.
Yep,
I share
I've seen that story.
Yeah. And so people were like, oh, you're embarrassing your daughter by sharing this. And I have to write back and say, you need to understand, I've asked for her permission and she's allowed me. My husband knew when there was an article about us separating. He was the first person I rang when I said, this is going to break.
Yep.
How do you want to deal with it? He's like, I know this is the life you lead. And so it was together.
And I think it helps other people going through those same things. Other people who've had a marriage separation, other people who are dealing with ADHD, other people who are going through IVF. Who else are they going to listen to? Who else is going to tell the story?
Well, the greatest story is a real story.
Yeah.
Right? That's why we love movies about real stories.
True.
And so I'm kind of just sharing my real story as I go.
All right, well, let's jump into a bit more current day. One of the things that's grabbed our attention and is just so wholesome and lovely is your daughter and you, Millie, have got this wonderful podcast, and anyone who hasn't tuned in, please give it a look. It's so much fun. Move Over Mama.
Yes.
Tell us how that started and how it came about.
I feel so blessed to be able to work with her.
Mm-hmm.
That's been the greatest gift. And even when the numbers aren't huge, you know, I just have to remind myself, I get to do this with my teen daughter at a time where a lot of teens are rolling their eyes and not wanting to hang out with their parents. I've got a daughter that's planning the next podcast and finding guests, and I want to try this, Mum. So I'm really blessed. But it kind of came about, Millie's a performer too, so she's taken on board. Yeah, she recently did Billy Elliot, the theatre show. She's been dancing her whole life. So it kind of was born out of a few things, to be honest. The network that I work for were looking for podcasts, and so I was trying to think of, could I pitch something? And then my daughter was at a charity function. Your wife was probably at it. And there was a really amazing lady, Bonnie Hancock, who circumnavigated Australia in her canoe.
Bonnie,
amazing lady. You should have her on your podcast.
We've had her sister Courtney on.
Oh, well, you should get Bonnie too.
Yeah.
Hey, funny, I'm
amazing sisters.
I want Courtney and you need Bonnie, right? So this is a call out to them. But anyway, Millie was sitting at this function talking to Bonnie. I'd taken Millie as my +1 when she was sort of old enough to start coming to some things. I wanted her to be socially aware, and it was a charity, Baby Give Back. And Bonnie was there and they started talking, and I'm on stage and I'm doing my thing, hosting. And when I get off, Bonnie said to me, oh my gosh, she takes after you. She interviews so well. She's just asked me the best questions I've never been asked before. She's going to take after you. And it was that moment I went, that's the podcast. That's the podcast I need to pitch to the network. Millie, me helping her along, a teen podcast. And then I researched there were no teen podcasts run by teens in the country, and none like this interview style. And so that's where it came from. So I said to Millie, would you like to do a podcast? Her eyes were like, yes. And another little side hustle to that was Millie was listening to a podcast from an American teen. And Millie, with her ADHD, struggles to sleep. So we have to take all the devices out of her room and all that kind of stuff. But she falls asleep listening to things. And she was listening to this podcast from an American girl. And it was kind of not the kind of content I wanted her to hear. It was very kind of teen girl, a little bit bitchy, gossipy.
Yep.
I didn't want that for her. And so those two things came together. And I was like, let's make a podcast that any mother would be happy for their teen to listen to, that's kind, that's fun. And let's put those things together. And that's where it came from.
Oh, it's fantastic. You're so lucky to be able to, as you said, share that with your daughter and produce such content which is wholesome and fun and, available to that teen market as well.
That's right. And we interview amazing, mainly Australians. We've had some internationals on there, and that's our big dream. People are so giving. In the beginning when I was like pitching it, there's no views, there's no data. And I'm pitching to these stars, Olympians and musicians and actors, will you try this? And everyone said yes. Everyone said if I could go back and talk to my teen self, I'd want to tell them this, this, and this. So yes, this is my opportunity to figuratively do that.
And how do you see the crossover with mainstream media, which you're heavily involved in, and now the social media, which you're heavily involved in?
Yeah, they have to go hand in hand. And actually, this is really hard at the beginning of social media, with the rise of MySpace and Facebook and things like that. I was lucky when MySpace started that I was with Nova. Nova was a really cool brand. And it was like, you all need to get a MySpace page. Here's how you do it. And so, we started there. So I was lucky I was there at the time, because then when Facebook started and then Instagram and everything, I just had that idea that we've just got to do it. I must say, when I first went over to Hot Tomato, it really was hard to get them across the line that this was really important and we need to be on top of it. We need both, and it's going places. So it took a while for them to jump on board that, but they just have to go hand in hand, this old and new media.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for spending your time with us today. I've got a couple of quick questions. I want to play a little game with you. A couple of quick fire questions. Let's go. Give me your quick fire answers.
Okay.
Apples or oranges?
Oh, apples.
Night in or night out?
Oh, that is so hard. I like both, but I think night in, family snuggled up. Yeah.
Okay. Instagram or TikTok?
Instagram.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Scrunch or fold?
Fold. I'm an eat tardy OCD person.
Okay. Pizzas, pineapple or nut?
Oh, pineapple for sure.
Emily, Jade, thanks so much for spending the time with us today. It's been informative. I'm sure everyone has really enjoyed getting to know you and understanding your journey.
Oh, thank you for having me. I've loved it. I could have talked for ages. We need to do 2 podcasts.
And thanks for listening today on the OMB Law Board. Stay tuned for our next episode.